Now let's take a look at some of the morning movers, names that are moving in action here. Diane King Hall, host of Morning Movers, is with us looking at the first one is Netflix. JP Morgan stepping a bit to the sidelines after an incredible run here.
I know, it feels like it's kind of putting Netflix on mute with this move from JP Morgan Chase. They're downgrading Netflix to neutral from overweight. But what's interesting about this move, Nicole, is they've increased their price target, though. They've increased their price target to $1,220. So it sounds like they want to kind of play both sides of the fence in terms of their view of Netflix. Part of the reason they're downgrading is just that valuation, given the huge run-up that we've seen in Netflix. I mean, you'll recall it hitting fresh all-time high last week. So it's still trading near that all-time high. The shares have rallied more than 30% this year, so it's significantly outperforming the S&P 500. Now, they don't, in terms of them raising their price target, part of that is also they don't have a change in their long-term thesis around Netflix. They still view it as a leader in global streaming and just viewing for households. They just see the near-term risk-reward as less attractive given how the shares have run. And then they also think that investor interest could shift towards other pressured internet stocks. In other words, different stocks that that investors may see as oversold, and seeing a potential shift in investor interest that wouldn't essentially benefit Netflix. And then they also think that this quarter might be a little bit catalyst-like. Light, in terms of the path forward. They do think they have compelling content, but they point to less favorable summer seasonality as one of the reasons. Again, it's a very balanced take that JP Morgan Chase has on Netflix, because they say, quote, "We believe Netflix is a key beneficiary and driver of the ongoing disruption of linear TV, with Netflix's content performing well globally and driving a virtuous circle of strong subscriber growth, more revenue, etc." So they point to that. But again, the worry is that, so they're long-term bullish on Netflix, but right now they don't like where the value is.
Yeah, I saw, they put that valuation, right? They had to they lowered the to neutral from overweight, but they put the price target a little bit higher because their prior price target was lower than where it is right now. So they had to make some sort of adjustment, but not really sounding the horns like buy. Also, TD Cowen today with a price target of $13.25. The last thing I'll say, I mean, what an incredible run this has had, and people love Netflix. Right?
They do.
It's still an incredible moat, but I'll tell you, Sundar Pichai revealed that the Google parent had, Alphabet, right, really was looking to buy at some point, debated about buying Netflix. That's huge. Really interesting. Imagine had they done that. Yeah. But it's still a leader when it comes to these Mag 7 names.
Yeah, I mean, look, and some would argue that Netflix should be counted within the Mag 7 because it's technically not. Some would argue that, you would essentially replace Tesla with Netflix given the outperformance that we've seen of Netflix. And you recall that acronym that we had before, Nicole, FANG, and Netflix was a part of that. And then you had the Mag 7, which kind of didn't include Netflix, but last year we saw outperformance. This year we're continuing to see outperformance. It remains the leader when it comes to streaming.
Yeah, and FANG was FANG, then it became FAANG.
Yes.
And you're right, Netflix not in the Mag 7, but I just say Mag 7 Plus.
Yeah,
Netflix.
Mag 7 Plus.
I just put it in there. I put it in there because I can't not put it in there. Double negative there for you. Let's get to Reddit. You're following this one, a downgrade.
Yeah, Wells Fargo downgrading Reddit. They've downgraded it to equal weight from overweight. They've reduced their price target. They now see a Reddit at $168 shares. You're looking at shares of Reddit under some pressure right now off the back of this downgrade. It's essentially reflecting a more cautious stance given how the shares have performed this year. They are down more than 30% year to date. They're warning about disruption from AI search. They think Google's expanded use of AI in search could disrupt Reddit's user engagement and in turn weigh on financial performance, especially when it comes to ad revenue and data licensing. So they're projecting that 2026 to 2027 ad revenue and EBITDA will miss consensus by 6 to 14%. 8% because of just weaker user monetization. They see part of the problem that Wells Fargo sees is the monetization of users who aren't logged in, right? So the logged out users. For instance, I probably would be considered a logged out user. When I use Reddit, I don't log in because I just don't want to. So, that's a weak point for Reddit because it's difficult to monetize users who aren't logged in. And so that's one of the headwinds that Wells Fargo sees because they are more than 50% of Reddit's base, but they account for a smaller portion of revenue, and then they spend less time on the platform. They see fewer ads. So again, that's one of the concerns here when it comes to Reddit.
Look at stocks more than half. It was 230, now it's 107.
Yeah.
Really a tough go of it. We had a great conversation with the CEO here on our network about a year ago or so. I'd love to speak with them again and see what the outlook is. In the meantime, we get to the airlines, and there has been some positive news there with UBS, right?
Yes, UBS more bullish on the airlines, United and Delta Airlines. Both shares moving a little bit higher today. Not a big move, but you can't count them out. Essentially, you're looking at shares of United up more than 0.5%, shares of Delta up a little more than 1/3% here. This is off of this view that they've upgraded Delta and United to a buy. They see significant upside from the closing levels that we saw on Friday, between 30 to 35% upside, depending on the target we're talking about. Delta's price target, that flies up to $66 from $46, so that's a big boost in their view. United, their new price target is $105. That is a significant boost there from $67. It's essentially relief from tariffs is why they're more constructive on United and Delta Airlines. That pause, the 90-day ratcheting down of tariffs between the U.S. and China, they see that as a tailwind for the airlines. And of course, the U.S.-UK framework that eases some of the economic concerns and the disruption that many felt, whether we're talking about analysts or economists, felt could occur with regard to the economic picture. Pullbacks on spending that they saw weighing on consumer spending and worries about the impact to travel. So they think that the demand picture improves with the airlines off the back of the developments that we got with regard to trade policy.
All right, and what will people do? Will they be spending? I was mentioning earlier that the cruise lines, Norwegian, was the big mover on the S&P today. On the downside, down 2%, but this month, up 17%. Are people month to date? Are people going to be spending or not, right?
Well, the view is now, even though that we've seen some weakness in the soft data, like the consumer sentiment data, the most recent sentiment data was taken before we got the pause between those draconian tariffs between the U.S. and China. But the hard data is still holding up, so it signals that there is still some strength in the economy, especially when you look at the job market. As long as people have a job, they can keep traveling, whether it's taking a flight or hopping on a cruise.
All right, Diane King Hall, thank you so much. Some good movers there that we saw on the move. Netflix, Reddit, and of course the airlines too.